On that note, I will get started with the first question, guys, which is a general question about voter participation. So let's start off this conversation highlighting the importance of voting, but not just on the federal level, but on the local level as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so important to participate. I think the big thing out here that we all know is that there is concerted effort to make sure that Americans can't participate and have their voice heard at the ballot box. We saw over 400 voter suppression bills crisscross the nation after record turnout in the last election cycle. So it's more important than ever to participate and to fight back and protect our democracy. But it becomes really important to pay attention to the big races that take up a lot of space, right? The presidential, all that, but also the local races. Local races are really where, the things that affect your family, your friends, your neighborhood, your street, often happen. The mayor's race, the city council races, the school board races. There are a whole host of those happening year round, and it becomes, and those are most likely to be the ones that actually affect your day-to-day lived experience. So at vote.org, we're always telling people to check their registration, go to the site, make sure that that they're ready to participate, and make sure to pay close attention to what's happening in the local community day to day. Unfortunately, in this country, we have a system where a lot of elections take place on a whole bunch of different dates instead of just every election happening in November. And because of that, we have to all do our homework, just like we would on what music we want to listen to or art we like or anything else we want to engage in. It becomes important to also do our homework and make sure that we know when those elections are and to show up and participate.
Well, Jordan, we know that you're a proponent of localism, so hop on in.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna jump right in on this. So I have served in municipal government for God, like since I was a teenager. One of the first things I did upon leaving high school, like years ago, was run for office because I loved my community and it seemed like something I could do that I could give back with that no one else was doing. And I think that's why it's so important that we look at elections and look at ways to get people to engage with them. Because as Andrea said, like municipal elections are the closest you can get to direct action in your community. But so often they're also the kind of election that goes ignored. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that people feel as though their voice either won't make a difference, they don't know deadlines, timeframes, things to be aware of, they're confused about where their polling places are. I was 17, but when I first got involved as a poll worker in my community, and I proceeded to do that for the next, oh God, I would say about 12 years of my life up until I moved from Massachusetts up here. And I got to see the kind of people who show up to vote every election, the kind of voices that have significant influence in your local community because they're the ones who actually participated. And then you see these folks who only come out for state elections, for federal elections, and things like that. And they're missing out on some of the more important parts of their community because they think those elections are the only ones that matter, which couldn't be further from the truth. If you want me to keep going, I
Yeah,
absolutely will.
no, and guys, this is the open forum discussion at this point, so just feel free to hop in.
I would say that not only voting within politics is important, but also since corporations and companies have such a large stakehold in American culture, it's also very, if you are a shareholder and you have stocks, um, pretty much that entitles you to vote for like board members and also just various policies within companies, which can really affect a lot of our culture, since CEOs have so much power and they're kind of treated like celebrities in a way. So like even though I'm not necessarily in the politics scene, I previously did work in like finance and also like now being in entertainment, like there's so much there's a lot of advocacy and politics that are so intertwined within all these industries. So I think one way to really show how important voting is showing that it's not just politicians that should be really focusing on politics. politics is for everyone, you know, and it affects everyone in our day-to-day lives. Even, you know, I guess like for a lot of like young people, maybe um in a lot of ways voting is kind of abstract, especially because there's so many, you know, kind of like there's a lot of lack of education when it comes down to voting, where it's like, okay, young people are excited to vote, but it's also like, okay, well, how do we make it more accessible, right? Especially because like so many people are such chronic online users where they're like, well, I've never sent a mail envelope before. So like how do I even like, you know, find all of this? I would say also like being on you know, social media and stuff, it is really cool to also see the integration of like how powerful social media can be if it's used correctly. Like for example, even just something as simple as you know, last time voting came around for like the major presidents, Instagram had a "I voted" sticker where you could post that and be like, "Hey, I voted," just to remind people, "Oh yeah, this is something that I need to do." And like by continuously reminding people on social media, "Oh yeah, like even though I'm here maybe to not necessarily talk about voting, this is something that I need to constantly remind myself that I need to do." So that's what I would my take.
Yeah, I think that perhaps I come at this a little bit differently. I will say that I probably lived in most states in the country, including some international places like South Africa. And so, like growing up in rural Kansas, of course, you know, your vote, particularly as a Black person, a queer person, a Black, queer, low income person, your vote, it's hard to see that it matters, right? When you're living in a district that is 70% white evangelical, white nationalist, supremacist folk, why go and vote? Why miss that day of work? Why miss that day with your children or your siblings or whatever thing that it is that you do when you have your day off, right? Why go vote? But I'm reminded of the Audre Lorde quote that your silence will not protect you. In fact, in terms of voting, your silence might damn you, right? So, like, we talk about voting as being someone's voice, but I like to think about voting as permission. When you vote, you are giving permission of a party or an idea or a policy or a law or a politic to act under your permission, to act under the power of your own voice. But when you don't offer that voice, win or lose, the winner is able to say that because you did not speak, you acquiesce, right? And so we can think, particularly for Black people, particularly for queer people, and also for low-income people, and those of us that inhabit intersectional realities, right? Voting has been a criminal offense. And I'm not one of those folks that go back and say, you know, your ancestors died for you to vote. No, they didn't die on purpose. They were murdered because they tried to vote, or they thought that citizenship was useful. And so for me as a Black person, and I would hope for other people of color, this seems, you know, it resonates, that the blood of our ancestors, right, was spilled because people knew about the power of voting. How do you spin that life that was stolen, right? So for me, this isn't about Democrats or Republicans or any political party. It's about paying it forward with the lives that were given so that you might have a choice. And what does it mean not to use every tool in your quiver to articulate and make manifest the reality that Black lives matter, that queer lives matter, and in fact, Black and queer lives are more than mere matter. They're the essence of the future. And when you vote, you make way for the children that come next. So I try to think about it in these larger terms as opposed to the day-to-day battles that we might win or we might lose, right? And to think about this as, you know, what were the folks that were enslaved doing when they were trying to get free? What were folks doing after Reconstruction when they were trying to vote? And who are you to complain today? Right. When folks are facing lynchings, when folks are facing mastectomies and penectomies and all these type of violent things just to be able to vote and count. If they can face that, we can face a long line. We can face a confusing ballot. We can face BS at work. We can take the day off or miss some money. So I try to think this in ancestral terms and not just the here and now, because the reality is this is a multiple centuries long battle for the ballot and to be seen as human under law and also have the power of citizenship.
Download myBalbo now on Apple and Google Play stores to watch the full episode of Democracy Downloaded or to start your own roundtable. myBalbo, the home for the next generation of changemakers.